Welcome everybody, this is Tim Watrous, President of Digital Advisors.
And this is Kevin Gordon, President of Capital Advisors Group.
We'd like to welcome you to our K-12 Politics and Tech video series.
Our objective is to give you the absolute latest of what's going on in Sacramento that affects public school districts, obviously, and as well as all the technology stuff that's going on that's so vital to delivering for kids these days.
And remember, if you find these videos useful, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and share out over social media. You're our marketing team. We appreciate your support, and let's go ahead and get started. All right, welcome everybody. Tim Watrous, President of Digital Advisors, back with another episode of K-12 Politics and Tech. And sitting in for our regular co-host, Kevin Gordon, and I would say stepping in a big way, Jack O'Connell is one of our favorite guests on the show. Jack, thanks for being here.
Tim, always nice to be with you. I'm going to make sure that Kevin spends more time in airplanes so I can pinch it and substitute for him.
Wonderful. Yeah, and those of you who don't know, Jack, you were Secretary of Education for the state of California. Is that right? Or did I say that correctly? Or maybe I missed that.
Superintendent of Public Instruction, or as my daughter used to say, the acronym is SPY. Wow, my dad's a spy.
and also the Speaker of the House for California for many years.
I was in the legislature 20 years, and was the assistant speaker. Some guy named Willie Brown was speaker while I was there.
Okay. Yeah, we've heard of him. Well, Jack, it's great to have you here. Of course, you're a founding partner of Capital Advisors, and glad to be here to pick your brain on what's going on. So let's start with some new budget numbers that are out this week. Can you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Happy to, Tim, and it's really good news. Both the State Controller's Office and also Department of Finance came out with their numbers just earlier this week, and we're hovering right around $15 billion north of expectations. We say this when we do our budget workshops around the state every time, but the state general fund gets 95% of its money, roughly, from three sources. And in order, it's personal income tax, which includes capital gains. And when you have the Dow hovering around 32,000, 33,000, obviously doing very well. Check your 401ks if you haven't recently. They're doing well. The second biggest moneymaker for the state is the sales tax. And as the economy opens up again, more activity, those numbers are above projections. And then bank and corporation taxes as well. So we're really lucky and fortunate to see this additional revenue coming in. The governor's office knew it would be coming. And even though, as we just mentioned, I was in the legislature 20 years, I never saw what I would call a pre-budget package pass the legislature before the budget, which has to be passed by June 15th and signed into law by July 1. But there were two pieces of legislation that the governor's already signed into law. And you and Kevin have talked about them on this program before. But that one's about $7.5 billion that helps people making under $30,000 a year get $600 one-time stimulus checks. I think it's called the Golden State Stimulus Program. And then the other issue is another package that you and Kevin have talked about. It was $2 billion for education, designed to incentivize our friends in education to get students back to school. And then the other package with that was $4.6 billion to address the issue of learning loss. And that was extend the school year, extend the school day, summer school, whatever types of creative programs that you have. So keep in mind that 40% of this revenue, it's actually a little less than 40% under Proposition 98, the minimum guarantee funding for the state, we're entitled to K through 14. Some of the money must go into reserves for education. That's new, but overall, it's really good. One complicating factor that was also developed this week, I just want to point out, it's going to make it a little more challenging for Department of Finance and for the governor's office, is that the May revise will come out in mid-May. And like last year, our income taxes, our state taxes, will be delayed until May 17th. And so when the May revise comes out, we're not going to really know exactly how much money is available, but then there will be a little bit of time for the legislature. They'll have a better understanding the last week of May, first week of June. So we don't expect the challenge to be insurmountable, much like it was last year, when, if you recall, the income tax payments were postponed from April 15th all the way to July 15th. This year, it's May 17th. So we'll have an idea after the May revise comes out.
Well, thanks, Jack. And I just for everybody, quick heads up: Capital Advisors does a wonderful May Revise web broadcasts. So keep your eye on your county office of ed to make that announcement, and that we'll all be looking forward to those that news when it comes. One thing I wanted to just add to what you said, you were talking about getting back to school, and on the tech side of things, the U.S. Department of Education just released some new data about students that are returning to school and sort of the disproportionate nature of white students versus students of color. So we've seen this in the digital divide. It's exacerbated in that way. So this is actually a pretty significant equity issue. We're going to put a link to that resource, a little bit, an article from NPR, and then the actual data from US DOE. But I'll just say, I'm glad, Biden in his first day in office had asked to gather data on returning to school. And it's nice to see this come out. It's not a rosy picture, but again, with data, that's the kind of thing that can help us address those issues. And again, that link will be below the video in YouTube, and will be going out in the Capital Advisors email to clients. Another thing, just sort of federally, is we've mentioned several times about the FCC subsidizing home internet for families in poverty or families that have been impacted by COVID. And we've got a lot of questions from viewers, so thank you for sending those. We do try to respond to those, but I wanted to keep you updated. We're still about a month away from gathering details, but the FCC this week said about 380 service providers have actually applied to be a part of that program. So they have a nice overwhelming response from service providers. And once they're able to gather the number of service providers and gather the details to share with you, we'll be the first ones to let you know. But wanted to give you that quick heads up. And we're still probably about a month away from getting real details on that program. So thanks for sending in questions. If you have additional questions, please send them to us. Our contact always on the last slide. So please don't hesitate to do that. And Jack, we had Governor Newsom. He's been very busy lately and appointed a new attorney general, I believe. Can you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Sure, Tim, happy to. Rob Bonta is the new nominee, at least projected, nominated to become Attorney General of California. The position opened up when Javier Becerra, whom I served with in the state legislature a few years back, and he was a former member of Congress, and then he was appointed by Jerry Brown when Kamala Harris went to the U.S. Senate. And Javier decided to accept a position in the cabinet for President Biden, Department of Health and Human Services. And so that opened up the Attorney General's position once Javier was confirmed. And so Assemblyman Bonta is a Democrat, a progressive from the Alameda County area. And he's going to be the first Asian American male to serve as Attorney General for the state of California. This is an important position. Being Attorney General, some people say it's the second most important position in the state after governor. I'd say it might be the second after a state superintendent of public instruction, Tim. But seriously, very important position, very important appointment, especially in light of so many of the challenges, civil unrest in our state, in our country. But this position can also be used as really a launching pad for a governor or for higher office. And there's a long history. You can go back to Earl Warren was Attorney General before succeeding to become the next governor back in the day. Pat Brown, Jerry Brown's dad, was Attorney General. Jerry Brown was even Attorney General after being governor and then governor again. George Duke Mason was Attorney General and ran for governor in 1982 as well. So you can see Kamala Harris parlayed it into becoming a U.S. Senator, and of course now serves as Vice President of the United States. So you can really say that Governor Newsom has had a tremendous opportunity to help craft these statewide constitutional positions, because not only has he now appointed the Attorney General, he's appointed about half of them. The other big one that he appointed, of course, was U.S. Senate when he appointed Alex Padilla, who replaced Kamala, but then also Secretary of State, because then when you had Alex become senator, then Shirley Weber became another position that Governor Newsom was able to appoint. But I know that I've talked to a couple of governors in my career and asked them about different appointments. And really, they've all said it's a tough position. You get great candidates, and there were many good candidates I know for Attorney General. Several members of Congress, some of whom that led the impeachment issues back in Washington D.C. Several other members in the legislature. You had a member of the California State Supreme Court that was rumored to be there, Goodwin Liu, and you had several district attorneys who also wanted to seek this position. And as every governor I talked to over the years has said, you make one person very happy, and then you disappoint a host of others and their constituencies and their people that have lobbied. So it's almost a no-win, I think, for a governor. But one thing is certain, Tim, when Governor Newsom leaves office, whenever that is, he'll get his phone calls returned from quite a few people.
Okay, wow. Yeah, well, no, thanks for the background on that. And yeah, I think it's just someone like me who doesn't follow it obviously as closely as you do. It's really interesting to hear that and the potential impact on our state. So thanks for sharing. One thing that we've talked about a lot on this show, Jack, you watch often, so you've heard us, is cybersecurity. In fact, I had to sort of tell myself, don't talk about cybersecurity every week for a while. So we took a little bit of a break, but the FBI, we constantly hear about new breaches. You may have neighboring school districts or yourself who may have had some sort of breach. And the FBI has issued new warnings that ransomware gangs are just targeting school districts. I mean, and they're targeting them more heavily than they have in the past. So this is, at least the second warning that we've reported on this show. And I don't say this to add stress to your already stressful time dealing with coming back to school, but I say that because if you haven't taken any measures on cybersecurity, it's certainly past time to do something. And just a quick little news story here. Kevin and Barrett and I were on a webinar for Q this weekend. And that's actually still on the Q website. If you haven't checked it out, it's wonderful with some, great leaders talking about topics of today. But one of the CTOs from Rialto shared a story about getting, unfortunately, their ransomware attack and getting their data hijacked. It took them 4 days to get that back. And that was 4 days where they're not going to be able to collect ADA because California doesn't recognize that as as an emergency, as a disaster. So that's 4 days of ADA they're living without. Now, I've heard of districts that are going a week and a half, 2 weeks without data. And you think about the percentage of your budget that was gone with ADA, that's significant. So it's going to be hard to absorb that hit. The other stat that's in the article that we'll put in about this FBI warning, $140 million has already been paid out to ransomware attackers from schools. So, not only do they take the data, but if you don't pay them, you won't get it back. And, if you do pay them, there's some risk associated with that. So make sure you're talking to lawyers, talking to COEs. If you haven't gotten cyber insurance, I don't sell cyber insurance, but I would recommend it's definitely something worth taking a look at. I want to follow that up. There's a great story out this week of a very inexpensive thing you can do to improve your cybersecurity. And one of the things is actually improve your students' awareness about where they're surfing and what they're clicking. So there's great resources out there like Common Sense Media. There's a great story actually from the FBI who built an online safe searching competition. A little school in South Dakota actually won, but there's a free curriculum. I'll put the link to that curriculum in the news story as well. And you can go through it's kindergarten up through high school where you can get some safe surfing guides for kids. And then it'll include a test so you can see where your school ranks with others. That's a very inexpensive way to improve your cybersecurity without having to buy fancy boxes and software. So please keep that in mind. And Jack, in the prep for this, we wanted to tease a news story that Kevin's got a little bit of a advanced warning on. And that sounds like some sort of infrastructure bills brewing back in DC. Can you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Well, as you point out, Tim, Kevin's very well connected back in Washington, D.C., as well as Sacramento. Spends a lot of time working on issues back there and trying to get information. And he was tipped off. You can expect a big announcement from the president, in all likelihood next week, in all likelihood in Pennsylvania, regarding a major national infrastructure bill, even larger than the American Rescue or Recovery Act, the $1.9 trillion that passed. This one, we hear, could be between $3 to $4 trillion. We haven't really seen money for facilities originate from the federal government to help us for modernization, for much of the technological infrastructure that you guys excel at in giving us. And we do expect this measure to have funding available for a host of our schools.
Wow, that is a staggering amount of dollars. But like you said, facilities upgrades are not inexpensive. So, I'm glad to hear that, and we'll look forward to more details from Kevin on that next week. And finally, I just want to wrap up on speaking of infrastructure. There's a really neat story about Mississippi and their approach to solving the digital divide within their state. And as we've reported out on this show before, the service providers are not always that eager to go run fiber out to the remote areas. So Mississippi actually used some of their CARES money, about $75 million, and they offered up a match to any public utility in the state that wanted to go ahead and run fiber in remote areas in the state. And they had a wonderful response to this. Those companies actually had a will to do it, but they didn't have the funding. So that match made all the difference. And just a neat stat that, again, we'll put in the news article is that Mississippi is around 48 in the U.S. as far as connecting their citizens. And within about 4 years, based on this creative use of dollars and creative strategy, they should be in the top 2 in the nation with connected citizens. So it's neat to see that states can take some of these dollars and apply it on their own. There is a lot of activity in the state of California to connect all the citizens, and we'll report out on that as that starts to evolve. But I just wanted to share that. And again, the link to that story will be under the YouTube video and be emailed out to everybody. So with that, Jack, any final thoughts from you before we wrap up today?
Tim, thank you for having me, and available anytime. Thanks for the great job you guys do.
Wonderful. Thanks, Jack. And please, everybody, send us questions if you have them. And please share us out on social media. We do appreciate it. And we'll see you next week.
So thanks again for joining us for another week of this broadcast.
And I just want to take a moment to remind you, if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel and share this out over social media. Again, you're our marketing team. I'll also finish by saying, if you have some questions, please send them our way. We'd be happy to address them on a future broadcast. So with that, thanks everybody, and we'll talk soon.